All right, sorry for the interruption, but when the air conditioning guy comes, you go running. Okay, that's just a secret. So, as I had said, the Myers-Briggs, it's got its potential uses, but I'm a little worried about how many people are using it for inappropriate things that have no idea what they're doing. Well, in all of these things about the personality, there's this there's certain people. In fact, this would be the work of Walter Mischel, who really had this discussion that personality can't be considered as an immutable fixed trait. Instead, you really need to think about it, say, for example, well, in fact, stepping back, um, personality traits tend to be pretty stable across time. Sometimes you hear ladies that'll say, I know he's a bad boy, but I can change him. No, no. Research and personality says you can't, okay? People are who they are. In fact, there's really only one life event that fundamentally shakes up personality, and that's the act of going to college. Okay? The person you are before and after college are fundamentally different creatures. That helps to explain why there's such a fundamental break in voting patterns based on college educated and not. You just fundamentally change. You are now a new person. But other than that, you're pretty stable across your lifetime. But what happens is that we think about personality as a single characteristic. But what Walter Mischel pointed out is that, who you are in many ways depends on what situation you're in. And so that's an interesting notion that, when I'm you wouldn't, I know it's pretty hard to believe, in some context, when I'm in my professor role, I'm very extroverted, I'm outgoing. But when I'm not in my professor role, I'm very introverted. I'm very shy. And wait, what? Yeah, I flip. I flip like a light switch when I'm in one situation versus another. It's that person-based situation. Well, as I had already said, that across different cultures, there is major differences. Americans tend to be more extroverted. Asians tend to be more introverted. But yet this notion of stability across your lifetime seems to hold true across all cultures. All right, when assessing personality or intelligence, other things as well, we often need to take tests, standardized tests. A standardized test is a test which is given to a large sample of individuals to create some kind of a standard or average. Okay? And so what we find is that when creating tests, in order to be useful, they need to be standardized, number one, so that you have norms or averages or a place to center it. But they must also be, the testing itself must be reliable. So a reliable test is one in which, let's say I give you a personality test and you take it today and then you take it in a month, and I look at your two profiles and you're fundamentally different from each other. Well, then that's not reliable, is it? So a reliable test is one which comes up with the same or very similar responses in multiple tries. A valid measure, however, is one that actually allows you to, that is true, for a lack of a better word. And so if I've got a personality test and I give you a profile and it says da 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 da, and it says, oh, you're extroverted, and then I send you out to a party and you stand in a corner and don't talk to anybody, well, then it's not a valid measure, is it? Because the test said you would do this and your actual behavior is that. And so, reliable means repeatedly measuring the same stuff. Valid means it actually reflects the truth of the world. Most personality inventories are self-report inventories, which is we can't even always be honest to ourselves, right? Let alone to another human being. But what we find is self-report inventories can be useful. Like the MMPI, for example, is the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory is very useful because it's got like 500 yes or no questions, basically. And it's pretty interesting because it allows us to assess personality and other characteristics in a lot of ways. The one that I remember that's very interesting was one of the questions on the MMPI was, true, yes or no. The only thing I find interesting in the newspaper is the comics. And so it turns out that if people say yes to this, then there's a higher likelihood that that person, in fact, is clinically depressed. Now, of course, the answer to one question doesn't give it to you, but again, this one single question is going to be combined with the results from 500 other yes/no questions. And so using very, very simple yes/no questions, we can create a profile of you, a predictive profile of your personality, of your mental health characteristics, etc. Another type of personality test is a projective test. These were Freud's favorite things. Stepping back to Freud, if you recall, it was this idea, remember, the id's unconscious desires want something, the superego says no, the ego's job is to satisfy. If the ego can't satisfy these two together, then it will use a defense mechanism, in particular repression being the most common. Boom. Now, something is down there below the level of the consciousness, but it's not gone, right? It can influence you in later life. It can become part of your characteristics, your neuroticisms, etc. Okay? And so now, according to Freud, all of those things below the level of consciousness are inaccessible to you. Inaccessible. Because the ego's use is actively holding it down. That's what the ego's job is to keep it down there. And so if you can find some way to make the ego relax a little bit. So according to Freud, sometimes what will happen is that your dreams will be a manifestation of all of the stuff that's going down at the level of the subconsciousness, because while you're sleeping, your ego lacks the strength to hold it down there. Well, he also believed that if you can just sort of relax a person in a testing situation, say for example here we've got the bottom left, the Rorschach, oh, what do you see in the image? And then you say, oh, I see, and then your response is supposed to be able to, it's a load of shit. But in theory, they believe you can read the response somebody gives to the answer to what is this image in the bottom left, and it should reveal something about the unconscious conflicts. Or here, the TAT, the Thematic Apperception Test, up on the top right here. And you look at, there's a boy sitting there, and so they're like, what is the little boy thinking? And of course, the idea is when you answer the question, what is the little boy thinking, then of course, that is an indication of what you're thinking, okay? Genius. They are what they are, and they're stupid. Are they good? No. Are they reliable? No. Are they valid? No. Do clinicians believe them? Yes. Okay? So, I didn't want to have to say it. Clinicians often are not very good scientists. All right? There ain't no scientific backing on a projective test in any way, shape, or form, and yet many clinical decisions are in fact based on these projective methods. I'm just going to leave it alone, okay? So I'll stop there with this little two-part presentation, and our next presentation is stress. It's got to be. I know it is, okay? So I'll see you the next time.